Welcome to QI for an episode which is all about justice. Members of the jury, the just Brian Cox. The judicious Rhys Darby. The judgmental Jason Manford. And the jailbird Alan Davies. Well, in case I nod off during these proceedings, you all know how to catch my attention. It's with a buzzer, and Jason goes. Brian goes.
All rise.
Rhys goes.
Order! Order!
And Alan goes. Excellent. So let's start laying down the law. Describe the rules. Oh, he's free! Escapology.
I'll tell you what, being a copper back then when everyone dressed like I was well easy.
Easy,
I think it might be him. It might be that guy.
I'm going to take this off because the bridge of my nose is rubbing.
Oh, you don't want that.
Oh, my God, it's Alan Davies.
Noel Coward was in a rehearsal when one of the actors was picking his nose. He thought secretly, and Noel shouted, "Wave when you get to the bridge." Anyway, describe the rules on a pirate ship. Rules? Yeah. What sort of rules would they have?
Obviously, they've got a captain.
Yes.
So he's in charge. So I imagine he gets most of the gold and whatever they find.
Well, oddly enough, now, they had two senior officers, the captain and the quartermaster. And the captain could be vetoed by the quartermaster on all matters except battle. Except rules of engagement when fighting. And they had strong laws. And the quartermaster was, he was about how much they divvied out, including he decided how much the captain got. The captain had no special quarters. He didn't have a, wonderful room such as you imagine in movies. So it's not exactly hierarchical. It's kind of a rule of two, the quartermaster and the captain. Otherwise, it was more or less a democracy in a strange sort of way, but with strict rules. For example, in Captain Bartholomew Roberts' ship, the Fortune, there was no gambling. It was like a boarding school. No smuggling girls into the dorm. No playing music on a Sunday. And lights out at 8 o'clock sharp in the evening.
It's rubbish being a pirate.
I know. That's not quite what you imagine.
My dad, the captain. That's rubbish.
Where are you going to smuggle these girls from, anyway?
That's true.
You rescue one from the sea. No.
There is a wonderful book that when Vic Reeves was on, he mentioned he was an expert on piracy.
He loves a pirate, Vic Reeves.
He loves pirates, and it's a book that both he and I read called Sodomy and the Piratical Tradition. And so it is a very well-known
So sorry, Brian.
Of history. No, it is.
We're quite highbrow and intellectual.
It is a very serious work of history and very interesting, which goes into the way these things were run. But obviously with the emphasis on the sodomy. But there was also...
And were there rules surrounding that particular pursuit?
There were rules, indeed there were, absolute, very strict rules. You couldn't just take whomever you pleased.
What are the rules of sodomy?
Not on Sundays.
It's eye-wateringly complex.
Yeah.
You're too young and too innocent to know. Honestly.
Really. For future reference.
Stick to small things like supernovas. This is really too explosive.
Eye-wateringly complex.
When it came to women aboard, the articles of Captain George Lowther, who was a famous pirate of his day, said, "If at any time you meet with a prudent woman, that man that offers to meddle with her, without her consent, shall suffer present death." So meddling with a prudent woman without her consent got you death. So they really were very strict with each other.
So meddling was rape, really?
I think essentially we're talking about rape.
That lost its meaning by the time Scooby-Doo came on.
Exactly. Why, you pesky kids haven't meddled?
Notorious gang rapists.
That's just terrible. I'm ashamed of you. Do they have pirates in New Zealand?
We've been attacked by pirates on occasion.
And you didn't have anyone transported to New Zealand like Australia?
No, it was a destination of choice for those seeking adventure and death.
Nothing's changed.
Nothing much has changed, no, exactly.
Why is the pirate voice similar to the farmer's voice? Why? Is there something... Arr! Get off my land! There's
one man responsible. Do you know who it is?
It'll be a film actor.
Yes.
Oh, OK.
Treasure Island?
He played in a great performance of Treasure Island. And in fact, Tony Hancock, the great comedian, he first started out as an impersonator of this actor.
Lawton?
No, not quite as well known as Lawton. In his own day, he was very, very well known, but now less well known.
Anybody?
Someone, we've mentioned on QI before.
Hang on a minute,
the chances of Alan remembering it are...
Someone in the front row saying, you've done this! This was on Dave on Tuesday! New facts!
Yeah, well, it was Robert Newton, anyway.
Robert Newton.
Thank you, yes.
Robert Newton.
Robert Newton is the right answer, but it doesn't count because we've had it before. There we are.
David Prowse almost did that, didn't he, to Darth Vader? He has a West Country accent, didn't he?
Yes,
and he famously thought that he was going to be used, didn't he?
Yes.
With his West Country accent, he got redone.
I am your father.
Jones. Very upset.
I'm your father, and I'm your brother as well. Sorry for when I tore there. Joking.
Well, see,
Darth Vader on a big tractor. Trundling down the corridors of the Death Star, chewing a bit of straw. Darth. Mr. Darth to you.
Mr. Darth. It's, yeah, anyway.
You know the skull and crossbone flag?
Yes.
Did they really have that? Because, I mean, that's really giving it away,
we
isn't
definitely
it?
covered that in the last
Oh,
series.
really? I must have missed that.
Alan will tell you all about it.
Go on.
Jolly Roger.
Well, yeah, everyone knows it's good. Or is that a proposition? Maybe later, Alan.
It's been 10 years, Stephen, and I've finally come round to it. It's time for a Jolly Roger. An eye-watering Jolly Roger.
All right, now, what's the difference between a Californian prison and a medieval dungeon? Now you can see we've very cunningly placed the Tower of London, which is a medieval dungeon, or part of it is, next to Alcatraz, which is, of course, a famous Californian prison.
Is it anything to do with the fact that you can't get out? Alcatraz is famous, isn't it, of being like...
Of prison.
No, not out of prison. How'd you get out of prison? Oh, Rhys.
If you're popped in a dungeon, you're given manacles, like you had earlier, and you're given board and lodging, essentially. And we go on today about prisoners having to... It's like a hotel, and look how much it costs the government. Well, in the medieval days...
Oh, they made them work.
Not just made them work, they made them pay. They had to pay for their manacles.
Wow.
They had to pay for their foot gyves, they had to pay for their everything. They had to pay for their accommodation.
So they had jobs?
Well, no, that was the awful thing. A lot of them, pretty obviously, were not very rich. So what happened was that they usually then ended up in debtor's prison because they couldn't afford to pay the fee.
Is that a picture of the returns desk? I don't like that. These are a nightmare. They really hurt.
But yes, I mean, when they closed the Fleet prison in the 40s, they discovered some people had been there for 40 years for what was a small debt they couldn't repay. Anyway, the point is, medieval dungeons, you had to pay your fee. And in California, at least in Riverside County, they've reintroduced such a system. Its county jail now charges inmates $140 a day to be in jail. $140.
It's more than like a Premier Inn.
It's more than a Premier Inn. That's more than Lenny Henry pays to stay in a hotel. So that is quite a lot of money. Yes, and county council...
Then again, there's no table tennis at Premier Inn, so... you got
it's true. Pamela Walls of the council noted it may prove hard to collect reimbursements because those defendants who are convicted of crimes and incarcerated typically have limited funds.
What a system.
The supervisor, Jeff Stone, he thinks these are very challenging economic times and it could be a great source of revenue. It could return $3 to $5 million a year. But... unlike in Britain, where you still had to pay, even if you were innocent, at least in California, if you turn out not to have been guilty, you get your money back.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, so...
But, like, where are these people getting their money from? Is from crime, isn't it? So all it's doing is encouraging them to rob more stuff. They think,
Yes.
I'm going into prison, right, I better rob a load of stuff, it's going to cost me a fortune.
They're just about to catch me, I better rush into this shop and take a till. It's true,
They can work once they're in prison, though, can't they? From in prison.
Oh, indeed, in most prisons, there's work. When I was in prison,
You can set up a little lemonade stand or something in the basketball court and, you know...
I had to paint soldiers when I was in prison. I was in prison when I was
like toy
18.
ones?
There were little toy soldiers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was quite sort of relaxing work. Then I was put on the polishing the corridor duty, which was not so pleasant.
Oh. When were you in prison? I didn't know you...
Did you not know? Oh, I have a checkered past.
There's a can of worms.
4 years ago now. We've moved on, Brian. We've moved on.
Many people believe I should still be.
You're going to be an institution for several years and you come out in debt.
Yeah, I should say.
Rather like being a student.
Yes, exactly. Very well put. That is basically what students...
Except you learn probably a lot more in prison than you would.
You learn a trade.
That all sort. You get a trade, you come out with a trade.
Useful trade. Bouncing. You learn how to be a bouncer. Don't take this question personally, Alan. I didn't write this question. All right. OK. Now, what sort of person would say that Alan has a very small penis? I'm sorry?
My wife.
No!
And this is a legal question.
It is very much a legal question, yes.
Oh, OK.
I'll tell you the world we're in. We're in the world of defamation, all right? Let's say I was to write a novel about someone who presented a quiz show called K.I., who was called Simon Dry, and he had a regular sidekick with curly hair who was called Andrew Devons, and had a very small penis. The idea is that he'll never sue because he'll never say, this is obviously based on me. Because no one will say, it's obviously based on me because my name's like that and I've got a small... Oh, hang on. So that's the idea, is that when you want to slander somebody, you put in certain things that they would never admit to. They'd be too embarrassed to say that it's like them. There was a writer who was snubbed by Martin Amis, the great novelist. That's Martin Amis. Peter James was snubbed by him, and he got his own back by creating a character called Amis Smallbone, whose manhood is compared to a stubby pencil. And presumably Martin Amis does not sue.
Was it Martin Amis? Who was it who wrote about Norman Mailer and put a little sort of to the appendix, you know, to the index, because they knew that Norman would always look, and
that
it
was
just said
Vidal.
Norman Mailer, and it said, yeah, hi Norm.
That's right. It's a bit like that Jewish joke, isn't it, about the will being read out, you know, and to my brother-in-law Louis, who always wanted to be mentioned in my will, hello, Louis. There are.
So how do we get away with that as stand-up comedians when someone heckles you and you have a go back and you say something in front of a room of, you know...
Well, it's a kind of understood contract between an audience and a comedian that, that someone heckles and you go, if I want any shit from you, I'll squeeze your head or whatever. Yeah. You know, some stuff.
What's that?
So,
what else would you say? What other things?
Just an example. Give away my best heckle remarks. But what I mean is, if you made a joke heckle, that's not defamatory. Okay. I think that's the point.
Tit for tat doesn't stand up in court, does it?
No, I don't think so, exactly.
He started it.
Yeah, exactly. But there are various defences. And in the case, which is obviously untrue, one of Alan's small penis, for example, one defence is the truth. The person does have a small penis. The other is parliamentary privilege. So a member of Parliament can get up and say, Alan Davies, Mr. Speaker, has a small penis. So
another member of Parliament get up and say, he's a grower, not a shower.
The point of order. The point is, you couldn't sue either of them because under parliamentary privilege, there's no action that could be taken.
There's increased privilege in peer-reviewed scientific journals as well.
Oh, that's privileged?
Yes, it is to some extent.
So that if you're quite rude about a fellow scientist...
Yeah, as long as it's in a peer-reviewed journal and it's not malicious, then you're allowed to do it, in the interests of freedom of debate. I could publish a paper reviewed by my peers about your penis, and I would be relatively immune unless I was being malicious about it.
Right. Now, that's the phrase, of course, they use in American defamatory law, is absence of malice. If you can prove absence of malice, then you can say almost anything, which allows...
I like his small penis!
Yeah.
It's very, very tiny, but it's wonderful.
Surely at some point sarcasm must come in.
Well, there's that, if you can prove that, exactly. So the other one is good faith. I genuinely thought he had a small penis. I didn't mean it as defamatory. It was said in good faith. That's one thing. The other is opinion, which is, it was just my opinion. Compared to mine, it's small, OK? Right?
It's a review.
It's a review, exactly.
1 star.
The other is the public interest.